Okay, connecting to server. All right, there we go. Good afternoon. So the 7 sculpting procedures that Miss Janie was talking about earlier, did it make any sense on how you would actually put this into practical use? Probably not a lot, right? So I'm going to go over some of the haircuts with you today. I'm actually going to like do them so you can see how we're using those 7 sculpting procedures and actually working with an actual haircut. So let me get this set up over here. Okay, my big face out of the way. So if we start out with this first one, which is sectioning. We'll just start with the basic solid form and we'll just start with the basic sectioning right here, okay? I'm just gonna section this into 4 sections. So as I start here in the front, I'm just gonna go from the forehead to the nape. And then I'm gonna go from ear to ear, from behind the ear. What I wanna make sure when I'm sectioning is that I'm pretty much on the same spot on both sides, behind the ear. Now, granted, people's heads aren't always shaped exactly the same on both sides. So if I'm off a little bit, that's fine. I don't want to be off like inches in my sectioning, or that's not gonna work. I feel like I got butterfingers today. So now I'm gonna come over here to this side and do the same thing behind the ear. Luckily with the doll heads, they are pretty symmetrical as far as the amount of hair on each side, but you all know that you have one side of your hair that has way more hair on it than the other. They're not exactly the same. So just keep that in mind when you actually have a client. And then when I'm coming down the back here, I'm going to keep the same thing. I'm doing a solid form, all one length, no layers, straight across, whatever the word is that people use to describe this, when our language is solid form. Okay, so now I'm going to do this solid form haircut. So my sectioning is done. I have my basic 4 sections. The next one is going to be my head position. Now for this one, 2 of the ways to keep your head position are either in an upright position or a tilted forward. The more tilted forward, the more of like let's say, to the bottom. I'm not going to have like that much, or I'm going to have more hair, more space to go from the top to the bottom. So I kind of like to do this on a slight tilt, not a whole lot, just a slight tilt to this. Doing a slight tilt, what I'm going to end up having is these little hairs on the bottom of the neck, right? Because nobody's hair grows like this doll head. I'm going to be able to comb those and get a much better cut. Okay. So that's my head position on the back. On the sides, what I want to do is you have the head in an upright position. I always want to make sure that my hair is evenly damp when I get ready to start this. And I always want to make sure that I am palming my shears. These out here in just a second, for just a second. So now for parting, I'm going to do horizontal partings, right? I'm going to do this horizontal parting at about 1 inch because usually the hair underneath, especially if it's long, people have ripped through it with a comb and it's pretty uneven. So I want to go to where I have an even hair, geez, can't talk, an even amount of hair at the length. Now notice when I took this down, I didn't throw it down. I didn't put my comb down. I'm still holding everything in my hands. I'm not putting stuff down. I'm not clipping it on me. I'm not clipping it anywhere but on the actual head itself. It doesn't matter when you section this horizontally, if you go left from right, if you go center, from center to the outside, center to the outside, if you go all the way across, whatever. Hair, nice and even across. We have the same amount of hair. Okay. So now I'm going to get this wet. It's my sectioning now. I've got some horizontal sections. Now I'm going to distribute this. I'm going to distribute this in natural fall. Can you all see that? Maybe not. I'll try that. It's all falling the way gravity is going to let it fall. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to position myself where I'm facing straight on in the center. I'm going to take a little bit in any elevation on this. So this is all concerned, not be uneven. So as I come to the center with this and I comb this straight down, I'm combing, I've got my shears, right? I've got them in the right position. I've got my thumb in, I've got them palmed, I've got the comb in my hand. As I place the comb in the hair, I'm putting my fingers on top of the comb and I'm following this straight down with no tension. I'm gonna cut, and as luckily I'm gonna use my handy dandy ruler on the back of my comb, and 0 degrees of natural fall, and I'm cutting about 1.5 inches, not cutting past my second knuckle. If I cut past my second knuckle, I run the risk of cutting myself. And yeah, I mean, it eventually you probably will cut yourself. It happens to all of us because we get, we don't pay attention. We're getting carried away. A good place to cut yourself is on the top of the knuckle right here. Or if you cut past your second knuckle, you can cut yourself in this fleshy part of your face. So we need to pay attention so we don't end up cutting ourselves. So once we get this center piece cut, I'm going to move. I'm going to stand right in front of this and I'm going to look at where the hairline is on this side. I want to make sure that I come straight down, taking a piece of my previously cut hair for my length guide. I don't know if you can see that? Part of my previously cut hair here for my length guide. And as I comb this straight down again, I'm going to cut this piece off, making sure that each time I get ready to cut, my comb goes into my thumb, cut this. When I'm done, I remove my thumb. Now, when I get to this side, I'm gonna do the same thing. Looking at the hairline. I wanna make sure that the hair that I'm forward, it's gonna get longer. If I pull it too far back, it's gonna get shorter. And I will this and cut that again. Another thing you always want to make sure of is when your client sits down that their legs aren't crossed, throws their shoulders off, which is going to throw their neck off, which is going to make the haircut uneven. So we want to make sure that they're sitting as straight as possible. Now, before you do anything else, I always grab this and pull it down to measure it. Okay, if you're right-handed, you're going to have a tendency for your left side to be a little bit longer. And if you're left-handed, your right side is going to be a little bit longer. And here's why. You start like this. You're doing great in the center. You move to the right, because I'm right-handed, so I'm going to use the right-handed person as the example. You move to the right, here's your hairline. You just kind of like hip check yourself. Your elbows are all in the same. This is not your dominant. So what happens when you grab, you end up with it a little bit longer. So it's really important that you just take that little extra step to where you're standing right in front of it, just like you were on the right side, to make sure that it's even.
Miss Connie, you're cutting in and out a lot. Okay, so we want to make sure that sorry, I don't know what to do about that. Okay, so now I'm going to drop down about another inch. We don't want this section so thick that we cannot see through it. When I get ready to cut this, see how that's like underneath here like that? That's my guide. So we want to make sure that we don't have the section too thick that we cannot see through it. So another horizontal parting, drop that down. Side, so instead of it going straight across, it kind of goes up a little bit. I don't know why, but it seems to happen like that. And if you're left-handed, now again, I'm going to start in the center. Now that I'm in the center, same thing, no tension, placing my thumb in my shears, coming across and cutting this, moving. It doesn't matter if you go to the left side first, in line with the hairline here. Okay. Check it again for symmetry. Nothing's worse than getting done with your haircut and realizing that you've got one side longer than the other. It's terrible. Now, when you get to the back and you're up here at the top of the head, what you have to think about now is right in the crown area, how does this hair grow? I promise you, it does not grow straight back. So you're gonna have to look at the cowlicks or the whorls in that area and determine which way that hair is going. Once you figure that out, you comb it in the direction that it's going naturally, right? Hence the word natural fall. And you repeat center to side to side. Now, once you're finished with this, oh, let me let these people in the room here. Now, once you're finished with this and you're getting ready to move on to the sides, again, we have to watch how it's falling naturally. When I go to take a piece of hair, I'm going to come back just a little bit further so that I have a guide from the back to work towards the front. Oh yeah, by the way, my finger and tool position parallel. And the reason why my finger and tool position, right, they're parallel. So I have a parallel finger and tool position, and my design line or my guideline is stationary because all of the hair is going to the same spot. So when you're starting this, until you get comfortable and a little bit more confident, I suggest you do one side and then you come over to the other side and do the same thing. This clip is gonna break, it's bent. Okay, my head position is now upright. That way you can come to the front and double check. Double check it. Is going to be even or not even. That way you can go back through. Okay. And don't just check it in one spot, check it in a couple spots, especially in the front hairline. If they have a cowlick that's pushing the hair one direction than the other, make sure that you keep it kind of even going across. Now in the front, how does the hair grow? That's one thing we really have to look at. How is the hair? Oh, I lost a screw in my stand and it's wanting to fold up on me. Okay, how does this hair grow? Now I hear people all the time say, oh, well, I comb my hair to the side. I don't part it down the middle. Why are you cutting it down the middle? Well, if that one hair does not fall in the exact same spot that you cut it, guess what's going to happen the next day? They're going to have one side longer than the other or one piece longer than the other. So a lot of times I like to just come straight down the center and across the front just to make sure that I keep it even on both sides. That way it doesn't matter how their hair is parted, it's going to be even.
Wait, so Miss Connie?
Yes.
So then cut it by their like natural fall? Is that what you're saying?
Cut it, yeah. Well, I'm saying
okay.
if you put it, but if this was a person, I wouldn't put any tension on that. Okay, see in the front here now that I've got it wet? See how this just sort of poofs up right here?
Yeah.
And the rest hair kind of like okay, so let's say that I parted it over here, combed it all down the center, down the middle, keep tension on it. See how this is flying right here? I would sort of pull it over hair. I just let it kind of go naturally like it is. Bring it down and just cut that little bit off. That way it won't be shorter than the rest of it, but tomorrow don't comb my hair the same way it was when it was cut. So now if I'm going to go ahead and grab this and pull it down, in front of the ear, I'm going to find it's the same. But here, like in the fringe area, I'm going to find that it's a little bit longer, which is okay because when I comb it, it's going to go the way it's supposed to go, like to the side like it wants to. So now we want to cross-check it and make sure that we've got every single little piece. So here's my center part. I'm going to grab a parting about 1/2 inch off the center. And I'm going to comb everything over to one side. I'm going to make sure that it evens up. I don't have any long pieces. 1/2 inch off that center. Comb it over. Make sure that it all evens up, that I don't have any longer pieces. Cut that a little bit. Don't be surprised if you find something on one side and you don't find it on the other, because that happens a lot. It seems like one side grows faster, right? Now that I'm back here, I'm going to comb it all back, straight back. That even like, see, there's a piece right there.
You're cutting out.
So yeah, I lost you for a second. So we just want to make sure that we keep it all as as no, don't expect it to be. Okay, back again. Do not cut that. What's you're going to cut that little piece, and then what's going to happen? You're going to have it shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. So we just want to make sure that we're here as much as possible and keeping it as even as possible. Now, if you look at, there's another little hair right there. Not there anymore. Okay. So this is your solid for just the solid form. We sectioned this into fours. Our head position was slightly tilted forward in the back and upright in the front and sides. Our partings were horizontal. Our distribution was natural. Our projection was 0 degrees. Our finger and tool position were parallel, and our design line was stationary. Okay, if that made more sense to you instead of all those crazy things in the theory book, hopefully that made more sense to you. Okay, so any questions on this one?
No.
Yeah, can you do the whole thing, because you're cutting out the whole time.
Ugh. You know what? Hang on. I'm going to switch internets and see if this even makes a difference. So hold on one second. If I lose you, I'm going to come back. I'm going to switch this again and see if this makes a difference. Okay, we'll try this one. Okay, so again, my sectioning was fours. My head position was slightly tilted forward in the back and upright on the sides. Now you guys are frozen. Okay, now it looks like you're unfreezing. You were frozen on my side. Am I frozen?
No. No.
Okay, because you were frozen for me. All right, so one more time. We're gonna section into fours. Our head position is going to be slightly forward in the back and upright on the front and sides. Our partings are horizontal. Our distribution is a natural fall. Our projection or elevation is 0 degrees. Our finger and tool position are parallel, and our design line is stationary. Okay, so let's say if I was gonna do the same haircut, but I was gonna do like an A-line where it's longer in the front, right? I would do the back the exact same way. But when I got to the front, what I would be doing is I still section into fours. My head position would be still slightly forward in the back and upright on the front and sides. But my partings would be on a diagonal and my distribution would be perpendicular. My projection would still be 0. My finger and tool position would be still parallel, but now I'm going to be on a parallel instead of parallel straight up and down, be parallel on a diagonal line. And my design line would still be stationary. So to give you an idea of this, here's the back now that I've just cut. When I get to the sides here, let's see, what I need to do is make sure that I have a diagonal forward, which means it's longer in the front parting. Now, the hardest part on this is to get the same diagonal on both sides, because you're going to probably be more straight on one side and more diagonal on the other side. So what I usually do is I start at the top of my section, and I'm going to just kind of divide that in half here with my diagonal. This is my section I'm going to clip up. See how it's sort of parted on a diagonal, where are you at? On a diagonal line there. So now when I get ready to cut this, my fingers are going to be at the same angle as this diagonal. So I'm going to shift this now behind the ear. So as I comb this back behind the ear, my fingers are following the same thing as my parting. I'm bringing this straight back. Now see, it's not going to line up because it's horizontal, but I would make sure that I cut this on the diagonal line. That's going to give me like an A-line look, because now the front will be longer. I would drop this section down, do the same thing, follow that same line coming back. And I would get the same exact line coming forward. You can make it more dramatic, you can make it less dramatic, just depending on how much diagonal you put on it and how much you want to lift it up. But this is still keeping it in the solid form on a diagonal forward line. So if I was going to do the A-line, my head position would be slightly an A-line solid form, not an A-line dramatic or anything like that, but just an A-line that's all one length. So my sectioning would still be in fours. My head position would still be slightly forward in the back, upright in the front and sides. My partings would be horizontal in the back and diagonal on the sides. My distribution would still be natural, except in the back, but on the sides, I would have shifted. My projection would still be 0 degrees. My finger and tool position would still be parallel, and my design line would still be stationary. I would just be in a little bit of a different line there. But that's going to keep it like all one length, but slightly forward, longer, slightly longer in the front, not forward in the front, longer in the front. And that would be how I would do the solid form. Everyone is getting the sides a little bit longer. And that has to do with the way that you're standing, making sure you're standing in the right spot, making sure that your elbows on each side are the same height, and making sure that you're just and projecting the hair exactly the same. That takes practice, because there's still times that I end up longer on one side than the other. And even though sometimes you feel like, oh, I've cut the same amount of hair off, you still might find one side longer than the other. And sometimes that's just the way that the person's hair grows. A lot of people's hair grows longer on one side than the other. I know my left side grows faster than my right side. There's even been times that I've gotten my hair cut shorter on purpose on the left side, because that way as my hair grows out, it kind of looks more even by the time I go to get another haircut, just because my hair's so uneven from one side to the next. And that's just me. Like, I've lived with myself long enough. I know what kind of hair I have. So, you know, people also have had the hair on their head however many years they've been alive, right? So they're gonna say, oh yeah, this side always does this, and this side always, you know, flips up when I want it to go under, or this side always seems like it's longer than the other. Totally common, right? So listen to what your client has to say, because they know. I mean, they work with their hair every day, right? So they know what one side does compared to the other. So those are some questions that, you know, you might want to find out during a consultation, like, hey, you know, does one side go better than the other? Most people are going to say yes. I'm sure most of you know that one side of your hair goes better than the other, right? So my theory on this is the side that seems to give the person the most trouble when they're styling it is the side that they sleep on. You guys agree with me on that? There's no proof to that. That's just my theory. That's just my thing I came up with. There's no scientific proof for that. But a lot of times when I ask people, they're always like, oh yeah, it's because I sleep on this side. That's what they tell me. And so I kind of, and I do, the side of my hair that I don't like is the side that I sleep on. So I just sort of like, that's my theory. Okay, solid form. Any more questions? No? Okay, so I'm gonna move on to increased layered. If those of you that were in theory last week, hopefully you'll remember the increased layered with the stationary design line versus the mobile design line, which is the one where it gets shorter in the front, going towards longer in the back, or the one that has layers going all the way around. Layers going all the way around are pretty easy. But I'm going to show you how to do the stationary design line first. So again, I'm going to just section into 3 sections for this one. So what I'm going to do is oh, a screw fell out of my stand. Not a screw, a washer. Alejandro, when you come to school, bring a washer for my stand.
Girl,
That way I can get the bottom better. Okay, so.
Will do.
I don't care what you do, whatever kind of service you're doing, doesn't matter. You always got to separate the front from the back. Doesn't matter if you're doing color, doesn't matter if you're doing hair design, whatever, it doesn't matter. Always got to separate front from back. Okay, whoever's unmuted, could you mute yourself, please? It sounds like I hear a radio or something going on. Okay, I'll mute you. Okay, so I've got my front from my back here, and then I'm just going to put the back in one section. Now we always want to make sure that the length of their hair is going to match where they want their layers to start. There's been so many times people have came in and said, yeah, I want my layers to start like right about here. And they've got hair, you know, all the way down the middle of their back. Well, if I take this hair and I bring it all the way up here to where this layer is going to be, you know, it won't even up. They might have to cut about that much hair off. So when you really have to over direct and it gets a little bit more complicated. So always double check to make sure the hair is going to reach before you cut anything. Because once it's gone, right, it's gone. And there's no way to make that even up if it's not going to work. So that we have to be careful of. This lady right here, she don't care. She's just going to let me cut her hair however I want it. So I'm going to start my first layer. Now, one thing I want you to remember, right here in the center of the nose, coming straight up her head right here, and all the way across the top, down the center, is an invisible wall. You cannot cross that wall. Once you cross it, you're going to end up with some uneven hair. So we're going to remember that we have this uneven wall right here. There's different ways I can do this haircut. I can do it on a diagonal parting. I can do it on a horizontal parting, or I can do it on a vertical parting. I'm going to show you vertical parting just because it's like the easiest, I think. So I'm going to establish a length. I'm going to put this length about the small piece, maybe a ½ an inch right here, no tension, down to the bottom of the neckline. And I'm just going to cut this for my guide. That's now my guide. I'm going to come in now on a, and I'm going to pick this hair up. Here's my nose coming straight up to this. I want to make sure this comes out a little bit here because I need to get that same height. And here's my layer. Now, what you have to be careful in doing this, oh, you can't see what I'm doing. Let me lift that up a little bit. Okay, so now in doing this, I have to make sure now that every single piece that I cut comes to this spot and stays because that's my stationary design line. So next parting, making sure that from the scalp, all of this is nice and smooth. Here's my angle. What's going to happen if I start dropping it down, which is really easy to start getting lazier and dropping it down. No, we've got to make sure we stay up at the invisible wall of the nose at the same height. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up with it longer on the top if you drop it. And the whole idea of an increased layer is to go from shorter to longer or long layers, right? So I need to make sure I'm not dropping my elbow or dropping that hair. So I'm just going to continue. Now, as the hair gets longer and the sections get wider, I'm going to divide this in half just for control. And as I get back here, it's probably not even going to reach. Couple little hairs. Okay. So now it's all about doing the same thing on the other side. Which now we're in the tricky part, trying to get it the same on the other side. So I have to remember how I did my partings on the first side. Got to continue with the same type of parting. So Take a little bit from my other side, just to make sure I've got the right amount. So, position is upright. Partings are kind of diagonal-ish. What kind of distribution do I have here? It's definitely not natural, right? So what is it? Sort of shifted, just in an upside down shift. And then my projection would be, a lot of people refer to this as 180 degrees. Not really sure if it's quite 180 degrees, but sometimes we'll call this a conversion layering. And my finger and tool position are parallel and my design line is stationary. Okay, so now I have this coming down. Now, if the back was long enough to reach, I would continue the same. What I would have to do, but before I move on to the back, what I would have to do is double check the front and make sure that it's even. I want to check it, right? Cross-checking is what it's known as. So because I did that, I'm going to come in just in the fringe area here, and I'm just going to bring this up. Making sure I keep the same amount. Like that hair I don't want in my hand, and I've got a little bit too much hair back here. But I want to come right here and just sort of pull it out like I was holding it and make sure that it's even. See, that side's just a little bit longer. So I move to the next section and I complete the same thing. How was this held? It was kind of pushed forward a little bit. And that one looks pretty good until I reach the back. And then I want to do the same thing on the sides. Make sure that they even up. I don't have, pieces longer or miss pieces anywhere.
Miss Connie,
Huh?
can you let Leslie?
Yes. I did. I just let her in. I just saw her trying to come. I just hit admit. Okay. So now
Thank you.
You're welcome. That these sides are even. So what I'm going to do is think about dividing this into the way that her hairline is. Got between the eyebrows right here. This is 1. I got to the edge of the eye. This is 2. And then I have the sides to the chin, which is 3. And this is how I'm going to go through here and make sure that this evens up. So now I'm going to have a non-parallel finger position because I need to have a length increase. So as I move over, still using the nose, I have to hold my fingers up. Still using the nose because I need it to come down at a diagonal. Making sure that they even up. Can't cut too much, can't go too far back, because once you do that, you're going to end up with a mullet looking haircut, which is something that we do not want. No, well, maybe they do, but there's a much better way to get a mullet than trying to do this, that's for sure. And mullets are coming back. What is it? Oh. Okay, so I'm just going to double check for symmetry here, make sure this all matches it. And of course, guess what side's longer? So when that's my problem, I usually stand on the opposite side. I just think it's easier to hold it this way because that's the way I held the other side when I was cutting it. Oh, for sure. All right, now let me double check that. Okay, that's much better. So now when I'm in the back, see now the back here is not nearly as long as the sides and the front as far as the layers go. So now what we would end up doing is have multiple design lines. I just want to check this to make sure that it evens up with the sides right here, just a little bit here. So I'm going to end up having multiple design lines here because I did stationary design line in the front, and now I'm going to do a mobile design line in the back because I know it's not going to reach. So my sides ended at my apex. Here's my length guide. If I come back here and bring that up, there's not much difference there. There's not much hair on this doll. So I'm going to just take about a ½ inch right from the center of the apex to the bottom of the crown, and I'm going to bring this straight up. And even that, I don't know if you can see those little tiny hairs there. And I'm going to do what's known as pivotal parting. So let me get my guide going here. So I'm going to bring it all straight up to increase my layers. So right here is the center. You know how I cut a pizza, or they cut like a pie or anything that's circular to get that triangular shape that we're going to eat on the pizza? This is the very center of that pie or pizza or wheel or whatever it is. So from here now, this next section is coming right off of that same parting, and I'm going to have almost a triangular piece. Grab a little bit of my guide that I just cut, and I'm still going to be lifting this straight up. But now it's mobile. So now I'm moving around the head. I'm going to stand over here behind it, either behind or in front of it, whichever way you feel more comfortable. I'll stand here so you can see. Here's what I'm cutting. Just making sure it evens up. Taking my next piece. Straight out from the way it grows. I'm not pushing it forward. I'm not pulling it back. I'm just coming straight out and then straight up. Only taking about a ½ inch section so that I can see what I'm cutting. Again, now I'm over here, pulling it down. Now I'm behind the ear. So I shouldn't have much to cut over here anyway. Yeah, there's a couple little ones. Then I'm going to move to this side and do the exact same thing right off of that center of that pot. Of course, it's probably the last over here to this side. Of course, you'll do it.
Miss Connie,
Yes.
I'm gonna log out of this device and like join in another one. Do you think you can like let me in on that one, please?
Yeah, just hang on because I'll keep looking, okay? It says you want to be admitted, so I'll let you in. Okay, now I want to check this. So because I did this on a horizontal, I'm going to go, because I did it on a vertical, I'm going to go horizontal across. Same projection at 180 degrees up or straight up or conversion, whatever you want to call it, but I'm still going to check it the same way by just coming across here, maybe grabbing a little bit of the just coming it straight up because that's how I combed it in the first place. Yeah. Move over here to the other side, do the same thing. I always start in the center and then go from side to side. Just think it's easier that way to check it. And then when you're all done, some neat little trick that you can't do to a client, but you can actually do it to your doll, is we're going to examine this normal projection. So because I cut it that way, I'm going to pull it down. And as you can see, it's getting longer to shorter. Okay. If I hold it this way, you can see that it's shorter to longer, right? And as I lift it up, I don't know if you can tell with it being wet, but it is shorter going to longer as far as these layers go. So the underneath is solid form because we've already cut this in solid form to begin with. If I didn't already have a solid form, this would be a little bit longer, but that's okay. Most people have, not most, but quite a few people do have a solid form in the bottom. And that's where we get this from right here. This is our solid form. This is our layer coming over our solid form. So this is our longest piece as it's coming here. So these are just some of the different ways to do the increased layered. When we come back from break, I'm going to show you how to do the increased layered with a stationary, or with a mobile design line throughout the whole head on a horizontal parting. And we'll explain the differences on doing the horizontal parting versus a vertical parting. Okay, so it's 2:59. I'll see you guys back here at 3:10. Okay, so we're back. So now what we're gonna do is a increased layer on a horizontal form with a stationary design line. So here we go. Again, we're gonna section this hair into 3 sections. Actually, I'm gonna do 4. Make it easier for you to see if I'm doing 4. And when you do an increased layered or a long layer on a vertical parting, you're going to get more of like an elongated type of a layer. When you do it on a horizontal, you're going to get more of a fullness. This haircut, when I was in school 100 years ago, this haircut I'm going to show you, they called it the lioness. Just because, and for the longest time, I thought it was lioness, like Snoopy Linus, you know, not lioness, like an animal because of the hair. And I could not ever figure out why they called it the lioness. Like, what does that have to do with lioness? But yeah, now I get it. So those are the 2 differences in the long layers or increased layers on a vertical versus a horizontal line. The horizontal is still going to give you long layers. It's just going to give you a lot more fullness than a vertical. The vertical is going to give you more of an elongation. So back down to my 4 sections. And these are the basic 4 sections. My head position is going to be upright. My partings are going to be horizontal. My distribution is going to be straight up. So I'm going to shift everything straight up. My projection is going to be 180 degrees or a 90 conversion. And my finger and tool position are parallel. And my design line, it's actually going to be mobile because I am going to move around the head with it. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead, since my hair is getting shorter as I go back, or longer as I go back, I'm just going to go ahead and start here with the shortest portion of my design line from the previous cut. So I'm going to take about a ½ inch down the center. And I'm going to comb this all straight up. And I'm going to cut it, can you see? I'm going to cut it all. Get this up here. All the same length. So as I bring this up, parallel position, going straight across. I'm going to come back and take the rest of it on the top. Again, bringing this straight up and cutting this, laying it over because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to take about another ½ inch section, about half of this, and I'm going to grab my previously cut hair and comb this straight up again. What you need to be careful of, because right in the center of this head, there's that invisible wall. You don't want to go forward, you don't want to go back, you don't want to go forward, you don't want to go back. You want to make sure you're coming straight up on this haircut. So, straight up again. Bringing down my next piece. Now I don't have to divide this into two anymore because I still have my, it's narrow enough to where I can reach this all the way straight up. And then the bottom piece doesn't reach, so that's good. A lot of times you find layers that don't reach when you get down to the bottom just because of how someone had their previous haircut, which is fine. Just end up more of a solid form on the bottom than an increased layer. So now I'm going to move to this side. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now you can stand on this side and do it, but I actually find it easier if I stand on the same side and just comb my hair straight up. So I'm going to go ahead and take my parting, come back over here to the same side I was just on, and get some design line here going so I can make it the exact same. There we go. And bring this straight up again. Now my design line's in front of what I'm cutting and not behind it. I always want to make sure too that you keep even tension on it. I have a tendency to drop it, which actually makes my tension uneven. So we want to make sure that we're keeping the same tension so we don't drop it. We always hold it in our hand. I'm going to come across now and get my next section. You never want to get more hair than you can handle. Okay, so that doesn't reach. So now my sides are done. For now, anyway. I'm gonna come back to them, but for right now, they're done. Now I'm gonna move to a back section. Keeping with the same horizontal section, I'm going to come across the top here. I grab a little bit of hair from my front section, making sure that I'm standing right in front of it. Gotta get the right spot. Well, I comb this straight up. Move to my next section. Using a little bit of the front as a guide. I'll drop that. I'm going to use this as my guide now while I move to the back portion of this section. Making sure that where I'm at, I'm coming straight up with this. And drop that again. Come over to my next section. And I'm probably not going to have anything reach once I get down here past this. But we're always going to double check just in case, but I doubt it's going to, yeah, it's not going to reach. Okay, so now when I'm at my last section, the main thing that I want to do, I have this section over here that's been cut, and I have this section over here that's been cut. And if you do it right, it should be the same length. So you can use both sides as a guide when you get here. Because if you're right-handed, guess what? This is going to be your hardest section. If you're left-handed, this is going to be your hardest section. And not that it's really hard, it's just challenging. So what do you know? It matches it. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing because this is getting to be the crest, the widest part of the head. So I'm going to make sure that I'm lifting this straight up. Keeping a piece there, moving over here. Sometimes it gets hard too to hold all this hair in your hand, depending on how much hair your client has. So if it's too much, just divide it. Make sure that you're only holding in your hands what you can handle. Okay, and now I know that that's not going to reach. So now that I've done this on a horizontal, I'm going to check it on a vertical. So when I'm getting ready to check this haircut, I'm going to come down the center. Think about the width of a perm rod. You guys all been using those lately. You know what the width of a perm rod is, right? I'm going to come right down the section of the center of the head, and I'm going to section this out about the width of a perm rod. I'm going to take about 1/3 of that hair, and I'm going to comb this straight up. Hopefully, it should match. Take my next section. Bring this straight up. Hopefully that should match. Hey. Okay. Now I'm going to go vertical in my cross checking. So I'm just going to comb this down. Grab this and bring it all straight up. Should match. Now it's okay that the bottom is falling out because that was done on a solid form. So the bottom's not going to reach. Pull that up. Oop, there's a longer piece, don't want that. When you get back to the crown area, remember those pivotal partings or those pie sections. That's what we want to do. But notice how I'm moving around the head while I check it. You got to make sure you're moving. What is that? Missed piece? Yep. And you'll find stuff. This is why we check it. Nobody's perfect. Hardly ever have I ever done a haircut and not found something that needed to be cut. Right, again, when I'm checking it, I'm not looking for anything that's standing out. That's why I'm taking wider sections. I'm just looking to make sure that it evens up. It's not like I'm cutting it, I'm just checking it. I should have already had it cut. But if there's any really long pieces or you've something that you've missed, this is where you're gonna see it. See, like those pieces right there, I might cut these longer ones off. But really, if I dropped that and went to comb this again, chances are I probably would not find that area. Of course, this is my trouble spot right here, the one I always end up with longer. And of course, it's a little bit longer. So now I would want to make sure that my perimeter is even. So I'm going to go back through and repart this out. So I've got my center parting, and then I've got behind my ears on each side. So I'm going to part this out and make sure that my perimeter ends up being even. And I'll start in the back. I'll just comb all this straight down because it's solid form and it's already been cut from a previous haircut. I know that it's even. But if not, I would come through and make sure that this is even back here. And then I would come to the front and double check this. Again, coming right through the front here, make sure that I know it is because of the previous haircut. But I'm just gonna double check because maybe I cut too much on one side. Okay. And then when you're done with this, you should be able to check your normal projection again. Find the same kind of thing, right? My longer layers, solid form in the back, longer layers going across the top here. Should be pretty even. Looks pretty even. I don't see any really long pieces that are going across the top like this. If I hold it this way, that should be the longest piece. This should fall over the top of my solid form. Oh, where am I at? This is falling over the top of my solid form. So that's my longest piece. And I have some basic haircuts. Okay. So what do you think is easier? Vertical or horizontal partings? Do we know? Anyone have an idea what they think might be easier? Vertical or horizontal partings? The mass marauders here.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so there's quite a few of you that don't have your cameras on. You guys turn them back on. Alyssa, Vanessa, Alicia.
Do you guys want to see my new purse I just bought from Amazon?
Yes.
What the heck is that?
It's a chicken.
Oh my God.
It's a chicken purse.
That's really cute.
I'm so excited.
Oh my God. Was it on Prime Day?
Yeah.
You got it on Prime Day. Buy me a Hello Kitty one, buy me one. That might be something. I just can't with him sometimes. Okay. So anyways, back to this. That was like way out there like squirrel. Okay, so what do you guys think? Horizontal or vertical? What do you think will be easier for you?
Horizontal.
Yeah.
Vertical.
Vertical, horizontal. Yeah, everyone's gonna have a different one, but those are two different ways to do like a basic long layered haircut. Now there's lots of other things that you can do to it, but that's more advanced. Like this is just basic stuff right here. Okay, and that's just some basic some basic, like two super basic haircuts. As we move into, let's see, what time is it? It's 3:30. Okay. So as we move into, actually, or as you guys move into actually doing these, you'll get more, advanced as you move along. But that's basic long layers and basic all one length haircuts. I was going to show you the video when I was talking about the two basic haircuts. I'm going to show you a couple of videos really quick. Let me pull these up for you. And I'll show you one that has like a diagonal line. So it's going to get a little bit longer in the front on a solid form or an all one length or a blunt cut or a 0 degrees or no layers, or I don't know what else you want to call them because everybody has a different name for them, but that's going to totally be, let's see, sculpture, totally be no layering. Solid form, horizontal, solid form, diagonal. Here we go, diagonal forward. Come on. Well, that looks weird the way that stopped there.
The diagonal forward solid form is a classic favorite among designers and clients. Many trends begin with the sculpture as the foundation. Endless variations of the basic form to a wide variety of clients. The smooth surface and progression of lengths from the back to the front lead the eye toward the face, giving the classic a little fashion edge. The elements in this diagonal forward solid form create harmony and symmetrical balance. This design is most effective when sculpted above the shoulders. The structure graphics show shorter exterior lengths and longer interior lengths, falling to a single perimeter form line. The art indicates that a center part, consistent diagonal forward partings, and a hairline parting are used. The hairline parting will be used to create the diagonal forward design line and length guide. The diagonal forward partings should be parallel to the intended design line and can vary from the standard 45-degree angle. Begin with a center part that extends from the forehead to the center nape. Release a half-inch parting along the hairline. Take the parting from the center of the nape to the front hairline on either side. Then use the comb to determine the length of the front and to envision the angle of the line you will sculpt. With the head upright, use natural distribution and comb control to sculpt the design line. Position the comb diagonally on one side and sculpt parallel to the comb with no projection and no tension. Use the same technique on the opposite side. Note that your comb and shears will be positioned along the opposite diagonal line to create a concave line. Check the angle of your comb and shears before sculpting.
I just want to say that before you ever do anything like that, look at the way that the person's hairline grows at the back of their neck. Probably most of the time, I'm going to say you cannot do that because of the growth patterns at the hairline at the back of the neck. This is for someone that has like perfect hair like these dolls. If someone's hair grows in a different pattern, you're not going to get that type of cut. But this is a technique that you can use.
check balance and symmetry, observing the line and natural fall. Then, gently pull down the strands on either side to check the lengths for symmetry. Return to the left side and continue sculpting a diagonal forward line, working toward the front hairline. Continue using natural distribution and comb control following the diagonal form line. Move to the right side and complete the design line by sculpting from the back toward the front using the same technique. Check the completed design line for symmetry before proceeding. If you are working in front of a mirror, check the line in the reflection as well. This method of checking will be very helpful to you when you are working on clients. The art shows diagonal forward lines connecting in the center, creating a concave line. Note that you will alternate from one side of the head to the other throughout the exercise. Release a parting parallel to the previously sculpted design line on both sides. Beginning on the left side, use natural distribution, minimal tension, and no projection. Position your fingers parallel to the design line and sculpt. Repeat the same technique on the right side. Take subsequent parting parallel to the initial diagonal forward distribution, no projection, and minimal tension. Sculpt parallel and continue to check for symmetry as you work. Begin sculpting at the center back of the left side and work toward the front hairline. Avoid tension, especially when sculpting hair that is distributed over the ear. Repeat the same technique on the right side. Continue using natural distribution and no projection. Continue to work toward the top of the head using the same technique. Alternate from one side to the other, sculpting each parting from the center back toward the front hairline. The art shows that the hair is distributed in a slight curve around the hairline to avoid activation and to create a pure diagonal forward line. Beginning at the recession area of the hairline, distribute the hair in a slight curve around the hairline to ensure that no activation occurs when the hair is worn slightly off the face. Then, sculpt the hair with minimal tension and no projection. Repeat the same technique on the right side. Distribute the hair around the hairline, beginning at the top of the recession area. Use no projection and sculpt parallel to the design line. Continue alternating sides, distributing the hair in a slight curve around the hairline. Work up to the center part on one side and sculpt with minimal tension. Use the same technique to complete the other side. Maintain minimum tension and injection as you sculpt. To soften the front corners, direct the front lengths forward and sculpt a slightly curved line. To avoid activation, use as little projection as possible when sculpting this area. Airform the sculpture, then check and refine the nape form line. Tilt the head forward and sculpt using comb control. This sculpture can be styled with a center or a side part. The completed design has a smooth surface with shorter lengths in the back and longer lengths near the face.
Okay, so that's one technique. Remember, there's different techniques that can be used, and that is just one of them.
The diagonal forward solid form
That's
is
not what I wanted to do. I personally would not do a haircut that way. I just think that that's a little bit harder. I think that there's easier ways, but to one of you, that might be an easier way to do it. So remember, there's many different techniques out there. So I'm going to show you another one now, how that one got longer in the front. I'm going to show you one that gets shorter in the front. So let me get that one up. Oh, there it is. I'm like, wait, how do I exit? I have this computer in tablet mode, and it's different than when it's in computer mode. Not that you care, but now you know why I can't figure it out. Although I'm not always that great with this stuff anyway. Just like right there when I pushed the wrong button. Okay. But great.
the surface appearance. The structure graphics show that the lengths are shorter in the exterior and longer in the interior. Diagonal back lines at the sides create a length increase toward the back. The art indicates that horizontal partings will be used in the back with parallel and non-parallel finger positions and design lines. Diagonal back partings are used on the sides with parallel finger positions and design lines. Section with a side part from the center of the left eye to the center of the crown and down the center back. Use the center of the ear as a guide to section the front from the back on either side. Position the head upright and take a horizontal parting in the nape. Using natural fall, begin sculpting the center horizontally, parallel to the parting. Move to one side and sculpt diagonally with a non-parallel finger position. Then move to the other side and repeat the same technique, sculpting along the opposite diagonal line. Check the symmetry of the length guide in multiple places to ensure accuracy before continuing the sculpture. Note that the convex line consists of a horizontal line at the center, combined with diagonal lines at the sides. This now serves as the stationary design line for the back section of this sculpture. Take subsequent horizontal partings as you work upward. For consistency in sculpting, always sculpt the center of the convex line before moving to the sides. Continue working the back of the head using horizontal partings and parallel to sculpt the diagonal lines at the sides. Use the shears to help compensate for the protrusion of the ear. Check for symmetry before you proceed. Maintain natural distribution as the back section is completed. Continue to sculpt the center of the convex line before moving to the sides. The art shows diagonal back partings extending to the back to ensure blending. Next, move to the lighter side of the sculpture. Take diagonal back partings that are compatible with a convex line, extending partings to the back. Use natural fall and sculpt parallel to the diagonal back parting. Work up to the side part, avoiding excessive tension, especially over the ear. Distribute the hair as it will be worn prior to sculpting. Continue to sculpt along the diagonal back line with no projection. Move to the heavier side of the design. Use the same technique to sculpt the design line. Check for symmetry before continuing on this side. Continue using natural distribution and no projection. Maintain accuracy when distributing around the hairline. At the top of the head, continue to distribute the hair in a slight curve around the hairline. Sculpt parallel to the diagonal back partings. Maintain this distribution while sculpting with as little tension as possible. after air forming, distribute the lengths in natural fall. Use the shears to refine the perimeter and remove any unwanted hair that may remain due to natural growth patterns. The surface appearance of a solid form enhances the convex line in the back of this design. The diagonal lines at the sides are flattering for many clients.
See, I would have done both of them the same way, only one going diagonal back and one going diagonal forward. But again, they're just different techniques. You know, there's several different ways to get the same results. So, you know, they're just different types of techniques. So does anyone else, or does anyone have any questions? No? No questions. Valerie, are you doing homework? Okay, well, who's someone's putting on chat? Oh yeah, well, I guess the Wi-Fi is just being weird today because I know my grandkids, when they were trying to get on school, they kept calling me, telling me where I need to go reset the router, which they don't need to touch it. They need to turn their devices off. But anyway, everybody that kept having to get back in the room. So those of you that were having those problems, having to get off and get back on, there was a few of you. Don't worry about it. I've got you down for attendance, so you're good. You're good on that. Okay, so you sure there's no questions? I just want to remind you guys, this morning I was pulling hours out. Make sure that you're texting your start and your stop times. I know that you know, some of the stuff was all down last week and being all wonky, but everything seems like it's working fine. So those of you that are using Lab, make sure you start and stop your sessions. Those of you that are using the text app, make sure that you're texting your start and your finish. And we don't need a picture of every single page that you write down. We just need the first page and that's fine. Okay, so we'll definitely be checking the rest of them when we get in person. But as of right now, I don't need to be printing 25 pages for you. Okay, so just the first page of what you've done, we can see that, oh yeah, you did your smart notes for chapter 9. Okay, we've got it, you know, and then you can bring the completed packet in, those ROP students, you can bring the completed packets in and we'll give you credit for the whole thing. We don't need a picture of every page, okay? So we just mainly want to see what you were doing. So the first page is fine. And then we've got your clocking in and that we've got you clocking out. So you can make sure that we're giving you the hours that you've done. Because there are still some, you know, people that aren't doing what they're supposed to. And then they're saying, but I did this, but where is it? Because we don't see you giving us any proof that you've clocked in or out. If you're trying to get on Lab and it's not working, just text it in. Hey, I started. If you want to double check it and make sure that you're getting all of your credit, use the Lab session tracker and text. And that way we'll have it for both, you know, a backup. So just to let you guys know, yeah, please, because it's really hard doing hours sometimes. And especially with Lab being down last week, it was extremely hard for us to do hours this week. So no questions whatsoever. I'm gonna let you guys go. Have a good evening. And tomorrow we'll do a couple more haircuts, different types. Okay, so.
Bye.
Bye.
Miss Connie,
Yes.
I had to step away because somebody rang the doorbell. Did you say that there was any homework tonight or just work on our packets?
Your packets. If you haven't done key terms or smart notes for this chapter, go ahead and do that. And I know Donovan sent you guys out a text with the assignments on there. So just go ahead and complete all that.
Okay.
Okay, that's enough for today. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Wait, Miss Connie?
Yeah. Yes.
It's me, Brenda. I didn't get a text with the assignments.
Okay, hold on. Let me grab my phone and I'll tell you what it is real quick.
Can you like copy and paste it and send it?
I can. Let me just
didn't get a text either.
Okay, who said that? Jocelyn?
Yeah.
Okay, let me, let's see, Jocelyn and Brenda didn't get texts. Is anyone else that's still on here not get a text?
Someone else texted that they didn't.
The what?
Someone else texted that they didn't also get it.
Vanessa, Melissa. Okay. Oh, I'm like, how come I can't find it? Because I'm not on Zip Up, I'm on my regular texting. Okay. Let me see if I can. So let's see, I've got Vanessa, Melissa, and
Brenda.